Are you a contractor just getting started out in this wonderful industry, but not sure what type of insurance coverages you need? Are you a contractor buried in insurance policies and you're wondering if you've got too many? Or maybe you have too few and you're wondering if you're missing anything. If any of this applies, this video is for you. Hi, my name is Eli Gillespie, and I'm the owner of Gillespie Insurance Services in Redlands, California. Today, I'm going to talk about contractors insurance. We insure a lot of contractors here at Gillespie Insurance Services, and one thing about contractors is they have a lot of insurance needs, more than most businesses. The truth is, whether you are an experienced contractor or just getting started, it can get overwhelming. So my goal here is to help you contractors understand at a high level what policies you need at a minimum, what is legally required out of you, what may be contractually required, and what types of policies you may want to get for your own risk management strategy and or peace of mind. I'm going to go over 6 policy types that I consider the core insurance coverages that a contractor would need. I'll start with the mandatory policies and then move on to the more conditional or optional. First, bonds. Bonds are absolutely required in all circumstances. Before you get any actual insurance in place, you need to get your license. In order to get your license, you need to get a bond, specifically a contractor's license bond. The purpose of this bond is to protect consumers against a variety of things that insurance doesn't cover, like job abandonment, defective work, code violations. The required limit is $25,000. It's a super simple policy to get, although technically not insurance. But you have to get it, and it's before you even get licensed, you need to get this bond. And if you're operating as an LLC, LLC only, not corporation, not partnership, not sole proprietor, nothing else. If you're operating as an LLC in California, you also need to get an LLC employee worker bond. The intended purpose of this bond is to guarantee that the LLC's workers are paid in the event that the LLC faces some kind of financial distress. This is a $100,000 bond, and again, you only need this if you are an LLC. So these are the first two you have to get. And a word of caution, with bonds, you never actually want to file a claim on a bond because you will actually have to pay it back yourself. That's right. The surety will pay on your behalf and then kindly ask you for reimbursement. So a bond, I'm listing this with insurance, but a bond is not insurance, and you ultimately are held responsible for the financial losses. So you don't use a bond, you just have to get it to be compliant, to be legal, to get your license to actually start working. Second, workers' comp. Workers' comp is legally required in some circumstances and contractually required in other circumstances. All right, the purpose of workers' comp is to pay for your employees' injuries and illnesses sustained on the job. It's that simple. There are some more coverages involved, but we don't really need to get involved with that. It's just that if you have employees, you have to get workers' comp. It is mandatory. This is a legal requirement. It is mandatory if you have employees. Now, there are essentially two situations where you'll have to get workers' comp even if you don't have employees. Okay, so the first one is in California, certain contractors' licenses require you to have a comp policy with or without employees. The 5 licenses that require workers' comp are the C8, that's the concrete contractor's license, the C20 license, that's heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, HVAC, the C22 license, that is asbestos abatement, and C39 roofing. That's always been in place forever, as long as I've been in this business for 20 plus years. Roofers have had to get this, so they're very familiar with the requirement for workers' comp, whether or not they have employees. But it still applies. And the last one is the D49 license. That's the tree service license. We call these zero payroll policies or ghost policies. I like calling them zero payroll policies because I don't like to think about ghosts. That simple. Okay, the second situation where you may have to get workers' comp contractually, even if you don't have employees, is if you're working on a project for someone that requires it, regardless of the license, you may have to get a zero payroll policy to get the job. Who would contractually require you to get a zero payroll workers' comp policy? A lot of people, a lot of entities. This could be an upper tier contractor, the general contractor on a big job, the developer, the project owner, a municipality. So if you're doing work for a city or a water district, things like that, they may require you to get a comp policy. A property manager, that's fairly common. You may have to get that policy in place just to step foot on the properties that the property manager manages. All right, the third coverage is business auto or commercial auto. Of course, you use an auto in your business, every contractor does. So why is business auto something I'm considering a mandatory coverage? That is because in many cases, your personal auto insurance will be sufficient. It all depends. If it's just you, the owner of the business, driving your own pickup truck to job sites and suppliers to do your work, then your personal auto can provide sufficient coverage. You don't need a commercial auto policy in that case. You just need to make sure that you have adequate limits, not minimum limits. There are, however, times when you're going to need to put your vehicle or vehicles on a business auto policy. So here are the most common reasons. One, employees drive your vehicles. So if you have employees driving your vehicles, that's an indicator that you should have a business auto policy. Your personal auto policy doesn't like employees driving vehicles. Okay, number two, your vehicles are heavy. That is greater than a 10,000 pound gross vehicle weight. So heavy vehicles require to be covered on a commercial auto policy. Number three, you are contractually required to have high limits and certain coverages that are only available on a business auto policy. That would be something like a $1 million limit. You can't get $1 million limits on a personal auto policy anymore. Back many years ago, you could, but it's been a long time. So if you need a $1 million policy, you're going to have to step into a business auto policy. Or if you need an endorsement, such as an additional insured endorsement, those aren't available on personal auto policies. You have to get a business auto policy for that. Number four, your vehicle is owned by a corporation, your business entity that's a corporation, partnership, or LLC. That's a requirement in most cases to get a commercial policy. So if you have all four, you have employees driving your vehicle, your heavy vehicle, and you need high limits, and the vehicle is owned by your LLC, you definitely need a commercial auto policy. Note that these criteria vary based on each insurer's underwriting guidelines. I'm speaking from a very general standpoint. What I mean is that insurer A may individually have a problem with a corporate-owned vehicle on a personal auto policy, but insurer B accepts a husband and wife corporation-owned vehicle on a personal auto policy. So you need to check with your insurance company to make sure your specific situation works with that insurance company. All right, fourth, general liability. General liability is almost always purchased by a contractor and is a coverage we, of course, highly recommend. The purpose of general liability is to pay for bodily injury and property damage that you or your work, including your completed projects, cause. Contractors have completed projects everywhere, completed maybe a long time ago, that could cause bodily injury and property damage today. That's what GL covers. It's not a legal requirement to have liability, general liability, but it's typically a contractual requirement. The entities that make you get that zero payroll workers' comp policy and maybe a business auto policy are typically the same ones that will make you get general liability. However, even if no one forces you to get this coverage, you should still get it. Why? Because it protects you from money you owe other people if you damage their property or injure them. This coverage will pay to defend you, even if you're wrongly accused of causing the bodily injury or the property damage. This is the one coverage you'll probably want to have just to give you peace of mind. This is the coverage that helps you sleep well at night when you think about what could have happened if something goes wrong and then someone comes and sues you. Stuff like that. Fifth, property insurance. What am I talking about when I say property insurance? I'm talking about insuring your physical, tangible stuff from physical damage. There are four main categories of property that contractors insure on four separate types of policies. The first is buildings, fixtures, furniture, office supplies, computers, that's business personal property. You insure these things on a standard property policy that you'd find on a commercial package or a business owner's policy, also known as the BOP. The second category is portable tools, equipment, and supplies. These are the things you own, your tools that you take to the job site to do your work. You insure these on an inland marine policy, kind of a funny name, but an inland marine policy is the type of policy used for things that leave the premise. Okay, these don't just stay at the building, you take them to the job site. Inland marine. This is the most common property policy that contractors have. If they usually only have one type of property policy, that's it. Because those are the most important, the biggest investment they often make in their business is those expensive tools to do their work. Okay, the third category are for the items and materials that you're installing. So you would insure these things on what's called an installation floater. An example of this is, say you're a window contractor, you buy windows, you take them to the job site, you store them, maybe you store them someplace, then you transport them to the job site, and then you install them. So the installation floater will cover those windows when you buy them, when you store them, when you transport them, and most importantly, while you're installing them. So if you actually damage them while you're installing them, they're insured on that policy. They're not insured from your general liability policy. And of course, windows is just an example. Air conditioning units, lumber, anything that you, the contractor, install can be insured on the installation floater. A great policy. Not too many small contractors have it. I would say probably most larger contractors have it. Okay, the last category are the buildings in the course of construction that you are building or working on. The policy that covers this is called a builder's risk. This is usually purchased by the prime contractor, upper tier contractor, maybe the project owner, whoever owns the building. That's who usually gets the policy. But it will insure the building from the time you break ground till the time it's completed. Once it's complete, then you go back to policy one and you get it insured on a standard property policy. But this policy can be used for brand new builds, for renovations, for additions. Now notice none of these policies are legally required. You don't have a legal obligation to insure these things. There is, however, a potential contractual requirement. So the most common is when you have a loan. So the lender or the mortgagee demands that you have it. Here at Gillespie Insurance Services, we think it's a good idea to have property insurance on all these things, your business personal property, your buildings, your tools and equipment that you use, that's in inland marine, the items that you install, builder's installation floater, and if you actually own the building that's being built and worked on, builder's risk. Sixth and final is management liability. What is management liability? This is an informal term for a bundle of policies or coverages that protects the business from wrongdoings and mistakes that causes others financial losses outside of those other things that were covered on the policies I already talked about. So in management liability, there are a whole host of policies you can get. But I think that the top two most important for contractors is one, employment practices liability. This is only applicable if you have employees. But what this does, and we call it EPLI, what it does is it pays for claims made against you by your employees for things like wrongful termination, harassment, discrimination. You can also get it to cover yourself for those same claims made by third parties. So, say a customer sues you for discrimination or harassment, things like that. Important coverage, employment practices liability, EPLI. The second is cyber liability. This has become much more necessary policy in the last 10, 15 years. And what this does is it pays primarily for loss of your data and the damages incurred by others that you're liable for once your client's data gets released to the public, and the costs imposed by law to notify the affected parties. Okay, cyber liability policies is not a standard policy, so there can be lots and lots of coverages on it. You can get them pretty robust or pretty simple. I just described a very simple one, and that's all I'm going to do on this video. But cyber liability, within management liability, employment practices liability, and cyber liability. Those are what I think are the top two for a contractor. Okay, now that rounds out my list of the top 6 core contractors coverages. Now, what about umbrella, pollution, bid bonds, performance bonds, E&O, D&O, crime, health, benefits? Yes, there are lots and lots of coverages that may be very important to you for your business, for your specific situation. This is not an all-inclusive list. I just think these 6 that I went over are the most critical for most contractors. So, but yeah, you may need more, and we're happy to help. If you're a contractor and you'd like to have our professional opinion, our analysis done on your insurance, just click on the link below this video, and that'll take you to a form where you fill out, and one of our agents will get in touch with you. We'll look over your insurance needs, and if we can help you, we can help you. If we can give you a quote, we'll give you a quote. No obligation. We're happy to help. Thank you for watching this video. Just leave a comment if you have any questions. Like the video, even subscribe to the channel if you found this helpful. I'd love to get the word out. Thank you for watching this video, and I will see you at the next one.